All right, we'll go ahead and get started. I think Reggie will join us here momentarily. Just wanted to welcome everybody today to our virtual happy hour, where we're talking a little bit about how to react in crisis mode here and how data can sometimes help you to do that. My name is David DiLorenzo. I'm the Chief Operating Officer here at Association Analytics, and I want to welcome you. The only rule we have today is there are no rules. This is happy hour, so we're going to chat for a little while. I'm going to kick things off and moderate our panel, and then we're going to open the floor up for questions, for comments, stories, just commiserating if that's what we want to do, and some virtual toasts to survival as we hear stories from the battlefront. We're all been affected by this unprecedented global event, so we want to hear from you guys, but we also want to give you insight. So our panel joining me today is Nikki Van, Director of Finance and Administration for the North Carolina Association of CPAs. Joining me from A2 is Julie Sciullo, who's our CEO, and should be joining us relatively shortly is Reggie Henry, who's the Chief Information and Engagement Officer at ASAE. And now I can see everybody popping in on video who wants to. This is what makes it fun when we can see all the faces. For you guys in the audience, this is going to be, as I said, we're going to do a little bit of a moderated panel. We're going to talk about some things, but then we're going to open it up. I can see most people have figured out the chat tool and the Q&A tool. There is a QA button a little bit to the left of the chat button, so you can use that for questions to post, and we'll be reviewing that and kind of pose questions to the panel. You can put chat if you guys want to have fun with the chat. I see everybody's already chatting it up with each other and sending us messages. And what you're drinking and all that kind of fun stuff, but that's going to kind of be the flow of today. So, you know, without a doubt, I think the two biggest things that I'm seeing out there as far as topics go are really how do you manage a virtual workforce? I think that's one of the biggest conversations that I'm seeing out in the space. And another one is how are you moving events from face-to-face events to virtual events. So those are some of the things we're going to tackle today. Also, we're talking a little bit about the tools and culture, but I'm going to kick things off with Nikki. And Nikki's going to get to practice her screen sharing here. I know that you guys are really always monitoring data to make decisions. This isn't something new that just came up in a reaction to the coronavirus. This is something you guys have been doing for several years and always improving that process. As you've looked at this current situation, what are some things that you've seen in the data that have surprised you? And are you making any adjustments to your offerings based on what you're seeing? And I think you said before you had some data you might want to share and screen share and talk a little bit about what you guys have been looking at and what you've been seeing.
Yeah, so I have to tell you, I'm going to share my screen with you real quick so that we can take a look at this. All right, so we normally send our dues out to our members in industry about this time every year. And then we wait until, we're the CPA Association, so we wait until the end of April to do the paper dues. And we were actually pretty excited when we checked our batches last week and we had members renewing. You know, when you think about in the midst of what everybody is going through to actually have folks renewing, that was a pretty big deal to us. And what we could actually see is, sorry, bear with me 1 second. Let me get my filter here. No, not the right one. Hold on. Bear with me a second. There we go. Got our membership dues. And then we're able to see, let me do the hover, sorry. Where is it? Where is it, Julie? Anyway, so you can usually a pop-up will come here and we can see, there it is, that if we look at the trend, you know, even in fiscal year 2018, you know, we did send our dues out a little bit late that year. We had about 31,000 in dues, and already after only being live for just a handful of days, we've got about 127,000 in dues. So, and so we consider, again, with the environment that we're in, that's a huge relief for our team to see that we actually have revenue coming in the door right now. And then the other thing about us that's, we actually are probably fortunate in the sense that most of our events, because of the cycle of the CPA, most of our events don't actually kick in until May. So we're not sure at this point, and what we will be able to monitor though with this lovely system that we have now is the trends to see, is our whole cycle going to get pushed back a month or two because of what's happening? Or are we going to start to see declines in our programming? So that's going to be really key for us to know how to manage moving forward, David.
Great. That's great, Nikki. Have you guys had to make any major, well, I see Reggie joined us. I'm going to pause for a minute and welcome Reggie to the panel. I think Reggie comes with no introduction needed, but we're going to welcome you anyway, Reggie, and just kick you off. Reggie, as everybody knows, Chief Information and Engagement Officer at ASAE. Julie, I'm going to ask you a question while we're waiting for Reggie to get back in. Just, no secret, we're Association Analytics here. We're hosting this webinar. So as the CEO of a data analytics company, obviously we have a lot of clients using the product. What conversations have you had with clients and the staff, and have you seen any uptick in the clients utilizing their dashboards, given what's been going on for the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, sure. So I think for a couple of days, certainly, people were moving to remote workforce, of course, doing all of that, I think, more quickly than anticipated for most, which was really great. Being a data company, we dove into usage, and surprise or no surprise, there's been a percentage around 30–35% increase in people actually going in and leveraging the dashboard, which is great. I think it's a couple of things that we're hearing. One is it's something to have staff rally around. So now you're looking at concrete numbers, you're able to make decisions, start to figure out what is the new trends, what are the new trends that are happening, and watching very closely. I think back to what Nikki said, thinking outside of the box, is the norm happening, is the norm not happening, and paying attention to all of that. So being able to anticipate and predict. I guess a specific one is a client looking at their top 3 products. So they did have to cancel their annual meeting, and then two things, not just looking at what they lost, right? But what was the bottom line after they've gone through everything? There were some savings, and really paying attention to profitability and not just the revenue loss, which could be really scary. And then looking at the other top products that are doing really well, products or services, whatever it may be, and focusing their resources. Now they have more resources that they used on their event, focusing those resources on those top products and services to recoup some of that bottom line. So people really, really thinking hard about all of this stuff and using the data they have, which is really exciting to see, people rallying around and kind of driving forward and thinking clearly, because it's not always easy.
Playing on that, Nikki, while we're waiting on Reggie to get back on. Are you on? You're on mute, Reggie. So if you're ready to talk, unmute yourself.
Everything fine.
There you go.
Okay.
All right. I'm gonna throw the question back at you that I started with. I said,
all right.
A couple of the things we're meant to, some of the overall themes I'm seeing out there in discussions, and you're probably seeing all over Collaborate and everything else. Some of the things are about moving face-to-face meetings to virtual. What's the impact of that? What's the data showing? Managing a remote workforce. Are you ready? What are the cultural changes there? So take a stab at either one of those, like I said, and a little bit around the data you're looking at. And I know, you wanted to show some of the stuff that you're actually analyzing in real time and what that means to ASAE. So if you want to do some of that and share with us, we'd be happy to give you that moment now.
Yeah, so before I share anything, I'll tell you that I'm a bit challenged by what I've seen our readiness be as a community for what we've gone through just now. And a good example of that was we announced a session on remote work on Wednesday, and on Friday we had 1,200 people signed up. Mm-hmm. And the level of discussion was all over the place. But yeah. I think the good that comes out of this is there there's an increased urgency now on the part of people to realize that work isn't a place anymore. Work happens where work happens. And you have to make sure that your staff and that your board and that everybody else is prepared for that. You know, I had a crazy conversation with a vendor not too long ago. I think it was last Friday, who said, you know, I'm frustrated that I can't get into your building. And I said, well, the damn building's closed. And we had this long conversation about, okay, what should he do now in terms of providing services to us? And it was clear that he hadn't thought about it. And so I think what the good that'll come out of this for all of us is a different sense of preparedness about what work is and where work has to happen, which is good. You know, one of the things that has served us well, and again, I can see the results happening over time, is I have this window into the Collaborate community that tells me pretty consistently what's on our members' minds and when things are spiking and when things are waning. So our ability to provide just-in-time education for folks based on data, based on real data, is at a place where it hasn't been before. Right. And so that's a really good thing for us right now.
Okay. And so that being said, Reggie, kind of what, you dug into something a little bit, and I'm going to pose, and I want the audience to think about it too. We can talk a little about an open session. And you hit it, not only we're not readiness sometimes from a technological standpoint in moving to remote, but I always find that moving remote is really an extension of your organizational culture. And if the culture is not, if the culture is already not good at connecting, at communicating, at using data for decisions, at being decisive in normal circumstances, that just exacerbates itself in a virtual world. All three of you can comment on what readiness, Julie and Nikki can chime in, talk a little bit about that, what people are facing. I definitely talk to associations that didn't even have laptops. So they're like, they've got trying to figure out how to all of a sudden access things and solve security nightmares and get into their systems to be able to actually do what you said, work what you do. So there's a little bit of a doubt that, but on the culture side, was the culture ready to work remote? And how do you feel about that?
Yeah. If you're asking me, Dave, I'll tell you that the biggest stumbling block I see to people working virtually or working remotely, however you want to talk about it, is that they haven't had a discussion about what that really means. And so we put managers in position to manage our technology solution to remote work without giving them the skills and tools they need to manage differently in that environment. And it really does push you to a place of having a discussion about what's the difference between managing people and managing work. Right. And they're two different things. And the closer we can get to managing work, what are the metrics for the thing? Do the metrics look good so that we don't overmanage our people? I think that's the key to all of this. And we've been doing some training. It's funny how we were just in a good spot, and I don't mean that in any way other than we happen to be doing some coincidental things. And we have been doing some supervisor training over the last 6 months, and a lot of it was geared toward how do you manage work, and so that's been helpful for us. But it's been a struggle for some people who are used to managing butts and seats and managing by walking around and managing by doing all those things. Yeah. And they now have to shift their focus to, is the work getting done in the time we said it would get done and the way we said it would get done.
Yeah, and Nikki, I know you guys are really relatively new to being even prepared for this and made some changes over the last year and a half. And how is it working out with what you guys have put into place?
Yeah, so everybody on our team just got laptops about a year ago. Up until that, it was kind of a combination of laptops and standalone workstations or whatnot in the office, which would have been fun to try to working on right now. So we do have this environment where people have started to telecommute, starting to work from home, acknowledging the fact that just, put it on your calendar if you're going to be doing it. So, and kind of getting people accustomed to the idea that if you say you're telecommuting, pick up the phone and call or whatnot. One thing that we really had not done previously to this, and kind of at the last minute, we had parts of Office 365 in place, but we actually had not rolled out Teams. And kind of as in a last minute decision, our COO decided to do that, and that has been it's been instrumental in what we've been trying to do as an organization. And similar to you, Reggie, one of the things that, again, coincidentally, that we've been working on in the organization the past couple of years with the management team and some leadership coaching that we've been going through, communication trust, competence trust, all those sort of things, those have really come into play as we tried to figure out how to work together. I think probably one of the challenges that's before us, I think in the next 4 to 6 weeks, the first week is kind of like, oh, okay, isn't this kind of fun? We're all working from home. And then all of a sudden, the second week, the reality of what we're trying to do. And you think about what you're trying to do, which is work and educate your children and have a household and keep yourself entertained and all those other things that come along with it. The work day is going to become and look different in terms of, maybe work 8 to 12 and then I work 6 to 10. And I think that there's always been a little bit of the confines of 9 to 5. And I think that what we're going to see over the course of the next few weeks is that really changing and people having to adapt to that.
Yeah. I agree. Julie,
that's so interesting. I've got an office that I'm working in at home, and I've always had that office. Whenever I'm at home, I'm working in that office.
Yeah.
I had to force myself last week that when I leave this space, I physically close this door to just change my whole thing. Okay, I'm not going back in there until tomorrow morning when it's time to work again. Because the first several days, I'm sitting here and I look at my clock. Holy crap, it's 8 o'clock.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's just not healthy.
No, it's not helpful when you have your office, your kitchen office, your back patio office, and then the bedroom office. It's like not good. It's not healthy. So Julie, I'm going to pitch this to you, and Reggie, you're going to be on the other side of this because I think you've got some insights to provide too. But as an industry partner in our association community, what should the role be of industry partners in this time to help support clients and the association community as a whole? And what are some opportunities out there to stay engaged with our clients, with prospects, with the whole community as a whole?
Yeah, so any way we can, right? And thoughtfully, we're a data company, right? We can certainly take a bunch of data, about COVID-19 and visualize that, but that's being done. And so we took a hard look at what skill set do we have and what could we potentially offer for our clients and industry as a whole. So thinking through some of those things, some ideas where, is there a way to do some sort of propensity model? So basically, are there enough variables to predict who's likely to attend a paid webinar? So the industry knows where to focus their time and efforts. And can we offer that at scale to anybody who needs and wants it? And thinking along those same lines, there are people out there that are more likely to donate at this point. Mm-hmm. So how can we do that same thing is find out, put a propensity model together and find out who are those individuals, and really just trying to help use our skill set as data scientists to figure out how to, focus resources, allow for people to have metrics to work remotely, because again, it doesn't matter when you work, like Nikki was saying, that's going to change. But if you have a goal that you're working towards as an entire team or organization, it's sometimes easier to figure out what you should be doing. So I think that sometimes when you're transitioning to remote work, it's like, okay, my day and my life is very different. So what am I supposed to be doing? So what are some of those key metrics? And are they still the same? Things are changing. We were, say I'm association and I have 35% of my revenue coming from my annual event that was just canceled. All my focus and resources is going to be there. But then the very next thing I need to be thinking about is how do I recover some of that? And so, you know, then setting new metrics for the team and meeting regularly and reviewing those to focus on that. So I think it's for us looking at how we can be helpful from a data perspective, and then are there things that we could actually offer to the industry to help them get there more easily. And so, you know, more to come on that, but that's what we've been meeting regularly and talking about. And then not just thinking about how this affects us and our clients in our industry, but thinking about all the downstream effects. So, you know, hotels are affected, restaurants are affected, you know, like the entire ecosystem is affected. And so really making sure any decisions made, we understand all of the downstream effects of that decision. So yeah, I think that's some of what we've been thinking about as industry partners, certainly.
Reggie, since you kind of manage both sides of that ecosystem, and you know your events and things like that are a critical time where industry partners and ASAE members connect. What conversations are you having, or what data are you looking at? What's been going on in Collaborate? What's coming in over the transit that you know you're seeing that, and how's ASAE reacting?
Yeah, so two things and I'm glad Julie mentioned the term ecosystem, because when I think about the ASAE ecosystem, the events we do are there to help two groups of people, both of whom happen to be members. It's there to help the association attendee learn new ideas, learn new processes, learn new things, but then also to meet our industry partners who can help them with those things. And so, you know, us making the decision to cancel, we had to make the decision to cancel, you know, the face-to-face version of MMCC. And so our attendees aren't going to get that experience that way, but neither are our industry partners. And for most associations, there's a group of industry partners that help support that ecosystem. And so as I'm thinking about what to do about MMCC, I'm not only thinking about how do I do these educational things that were going on, but how do I make opportunities for industry partners to connect with the association folks who are hoping to see them, and how do I make you know, things happen for association people who need new tools right now. I still have that job to do, and so I think I'm hoping that everybody, as they're thinking through this, our first job is to think about our members. Well, my members are both industry partners and association execs. And so I have to make sure I'm thinking about all of that going along. You know, after Nikki responds, if you want to, I signed in as another Reggie as well. And if you give that Reggie control of the screen, I can show you some stuff.
You know, our ecosystem, just like everybody else's, I mean, we have the events, there's the hotels, that sort of thing, but kind of looking at it from the perspective as well, you know, who do we serve and who do our members serve? And how can we create value for both sets right now? And so again, for us, you know, it was interesting that the comment was made at one point that we right now we are building our value proposition for our members right now. And the things that the things and the ways that we're providing information right now. And so, you know, we're obviously the CPAs, you know, with the tax extensions and tax returns and filings, you know, that's obviously one part of what we're kind of tracking and monitoring. We had, sorry, I did make a couple little notes. We had a webinar that we just released yesterday. We know we already have 56 people on that webinar about the new tax developments. We also offered a coronavirus. So we had 819 participants on a free webinar. And Reggie, you know, your comment this yesterday made me start thinking, like, what can we do with those 819 participants? Are they active participants? You know, what about the other 14,000 of our members that haven't seen this webinar? What can we do to make sure they even know that that webinar exists? And then beyond that, you know, thinking about how can we serve then the public through our members. You know, there's a lot of information coming now through the Family Act and how, you know, CPAs are supposed to be that the essential resource when it comes to accounting and compliance and that sort of thing. So how can our members help serve their customers?
Absolutely.
We know what's the impact of the Family Act going to be in those sort of ways. So that becomes our ecosystem. So again, thinking about how this impacts and the trickle down of the multiple layers of who this impacts and how we can reach out to them right now.
Got it.
That's something that I think, I'm always glass half full. Those of you know me, I'm a positive person. So a lot of this is looking at the opportunities, right? And that's something that I think a lot of people have done. And Nikki, I know you certainly have. Reggie, you certainly have. So what are the opportunities? Even when we were chatting yesterday, it's like, okay, don't just take your regular meeting and turn it to a virtual version of that.
Right.
You have a real opportunity to shake things up here. And I know that's not typically in the DNA of who we are as associations, but this gives us an opportunity to really take a look and do something different, to make a bold decision or a bold direction or shake things up and see if it works. Why not? And now is a better time than any. And we're really seeing people do that across the board, which has been, one of the silver linings, if there is one here, that's coming out of this, which I think is really positive for the industry as a whole.
Yeah, let's say a little bit across that on the whole. Let's say a little bit on that on the whole side, because I think one of the things I see at the beginning was the tools and how many tools we have available to us as companies, as associations, to do all the things we need to do: remote work, to hold events, to work with our staff, to find new ways of using tools. I've been on so many virtual happy hours in the last 2 weeks on Zoom of literally just people having a drink at 8 or 9 o'clock at night to commiserate because we're social distancing.
Here's to you, buddy.
There you go, buddy. But, virtual cheers. But that being said, Reggie, I know you wanted to show a little bit of data. But has there been, and everybody can think about this, has there been a rise in people in your community? If you're looking at your community, or are there people that have you had a rise in first time posters that, oh my God, I need to feel connected to this community. I'm used to seeing people. So are there some trends you're seeing in your community or any other tools you're using that you might want to share or show?
Yeah, I can certainly show some stuff. I'll share my screen as I'm talking, but I'm also just thoughtful about what Julie just shared, which is we're developing some new muscles right now. Yeah. We really are, and that's allowing us to think a little bit differently and work a little bit differently. And I'm just so hopeful right now that after this is all over, we'll keep flexing those muscles, and realize. I was talking to the folks who planned the MMCC conference, and they were thinking about, okay, if we do this, it's a 2-day conference, so we got to take all this content and try to do it online in 2 days. I'm like, you don't have to do that.
Right.
Nobody's going to sit in front of their computer for 2 days when the dog's barking and the kids are flying in and out of the room. And, so if we wanted to stretch that out over a week, we could. Mm-hmm. And it would look different and feel different. And everything doesn't have to be a session with a speaker speaking. I mean, we've got options. If we keep in mind that the idea is we're trying to get content to people. Yeah. And right now in particular, and my motto of my staff is all the time, how can we be present at the point of need? And that's where we are right now. And people's ability to consume stuff with everything else going on around them is different. So,
yeah. I'm gonna ask you, Reggie, before you go, and Nikki, and the audience, if you guys want to put in the chat. I mean, taking that into consideration, because I hadn't thought about it before, but is anybody even surveying their members or trying to do learning based on when people are available to learn in this environment right now? Like, are you willing to offer seminars at 7 a.m. or at 10 o'clock at night, as people's days have now shifted? As Nikki said, people are taking a break where work might be from 7 to 11, and then there's a break, and then I'm working again from 6 to 10, because that's how I got to live right now. Kids are not in school. Is anybody looking at that?
Or take time out of the equation.
Yeah. Yeah, true.
Do whatever you're doing with this content in a way that people can get it whenever they want to get it. you know, this isn't the time to be pulling people from place to place because, you know, they got stuff they need to do. So we've got all the tools now and new vendors in the community that can help you rethink that content delivery in a way that it can be flexible to when somebody needs it.
Well, Reggie, you got some cool looking things up, so I'm gonna let you.
Yeah. So one
tell.
of the things that I have our staff relying on all the time now is that they can go in and see what's on the community's mind. And you can see as I go through here, it's showing what's trending in terms of conversation. And then you get to this big old stupid thing over here, which is the coronavirus kinds of things. But we were able to see when that started to trend. You know, we were absolutely able to see. And what that resulted in us doing was doing a series of webinars and seminars that our members were so grateful for because they were just starting to have those conversations. And you know, I saw this a couple of years ago. We were using this tool to do when GDPR started to spin itself up. And again, we were able to get in on the front of it and educate the community. And I could then see that conversation spin back down because we had taken care of that need. So I think that's important. What also is important is once you see that, you know, having the ability to go in and you know, I want to search on coronavirus, and I can actually see all the conversations that are going on about coronavirus in here. I can see who's having the conversations, and I can find out who's answering the most questions in here. So the ability to put together a seminar that you know folks need because you can see that and find out who are the people who can be on panels or answer questions about it, et cetera. And I learned a new trick the other day, Dave. These people involved in this conversation, if I get all of them to send one email to 3 people, holy crap, the thing spins up real quickly. Like, so, you know, you got everything you need to make this a viral kind of thing as you're going along. And, you know, what was important to me at this time is when something happens at this scale, it's an emergency. So we're creating those events. I'm not charging anybody for these Corona events. We're not charging anybody for the seminar we did on remote work. We're not doing that. But as Nikki said, we're building what we need to build in our members' minds right now of our ability to be there when they need them. So I just say that as a point of, because I've seen in the community people taking advantage of this situation in ways that I've actually gone into the community a couple of times and did the virtual smackdown. You know, stop, just stop doing
I like that.
Yeah, just stop it.
You do not want the Reggie Henry virtual smackdown, let me tell you.
Yeah. But you kind of see, again, you guys preach this all the time. We've got so much data that we don't do anything with that can tell us and guide us, especially in these times right now, that can guide us to where our members need us to be. And I just think that's critical.
Yeah, taking it one step further and linking this back to what Nikki was talking about earlier, now that you know the content, you could dive into who in your members and non-members, right, needs that content. Then if you're pulling marketing email data over, you could then see social data. You could see what channels people like to receive their information, right? So now you have a little bit more power and kind of that data confidence. You know where to focus your resources. You know what content, you know what channel they like to get it. And you're focusing your internal resources there. And so that has to yield better results. I mean, if you did it, you would see it. But.
Yeah, and there's been a couple of cases where, and I'm always mindful of this, is that it's not our job to try to do everything. It's our job to see to it that things get done. And so there's been at least a couple of cases where, you know, I told our team, I know we're strapped in terms of doing stuff. This group of people right here, I bet you we can have a conversation with them and they'll create the solutions for each other. And I'm seeing some of that go on, and we've spurred a couple of those to go on as well. So I think once you get your hand on that data of seeing conversation, it's really a magnifying glass into what's already happening in your community, quite honestly. you can start to harness that for the community's good.
Yeah, we talked about that the other day with a nursing society, and they basically called it thought partnership, right? We're strapped for resources here at the association, but you know who else cares? All of our members about the industry.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And now we know these groups care about specific topics or specific things. So exactly that. Let's get them together. Let's get people in a virtual room just like this and talk about, how can we diversify our revenue? You know what? They'll help you. They'll be that thought partner with you as long as you get the right people to the table. And this, leveraging this data that you don't always think about, right? Like some of the unstructured data allows you to get those answers. So thinking beyond just the transactional stuff. And if people are buying things, of course, that's great to watch, like Nikki's doing. I think you had said yesterday at a time like now, it's great to see people are actually renewing their NCACPA membership. That's important. Keeping a trend line that's normal, looking to see, is it trending the same way as it did? If not, what are we going to do about it? Right? Just knowing that is powerful.
Well, that's great input, insights. I want to transition a little bit here. Just take a few questions from the audience. But there is a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. I know everybody's using the chat. If you have any questions you want to ask, I have one here for Reggie. In general, what is ASA using to track your web data and generate the graph on most search terms? How is that built?
Yeah, so all of the data that you've seen so far has come out of Higher Logic and being dumped into our association and analytics platform and using Power BI to generate the charts that you saw.
Okay. And we can keep on talking. I just want to encourage people to put in questions. I'm trying to go back to the chat. I think there were a few questions in there that I'm going to try to pull out.
John asked a funny one earlier. People, if anybody has solved this, please let everybody know how you work successfully with family members around.
Really, that's good, because I keep wanting to mute my microphone because my son's volume level just keeps getting a little bit louder downstairs to the point I keep muting my microphone because I'm like, oh geez, here it comes.
Yeah, here it comes.
My office is by the front door, so I police taped off the entire front patio to do not enter.
Yeah, Nikki, you guys know my trick. I actually pretend like I'm leaving for the day, and this tricks little kids, which I have, and I go through the basement door, and I have my office down there. So,
Oh God!
That's my hack.
You wait till your kids get old enough that I can tell them that you do that.
Yeah.
Bye,
I will tell you, with that in mind, Julie, Gretchen Steenstra from Delcor and myself did a session that we're going to rekindle as a virtual happy hour probably next week, one evening. But we did a session at a conference, can't remember which conference it was, but it was project managing your kids. And it was taking the principles of project management and applying them to your family.
Yeah.
It was very fun.
To that.
Oh, everybody will be invited to. We'll put it out there. It's going to be one of these Zoom meetings. If anybody wants to jump on video, this is the time. I think the lines are open and you can start your video and join us and at least give us yours and let us know you're all here.
I'm looking at a comment from, I think, Kimya on here. And she says, I have a child who hates cleaning.
Yeah.
Why is she vacuuming right now?
Yeah, like why?
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, let's see, I'm trying to see. Let me read through. This is the time for you guys to post questions. You got an expert panel up here. If you have anything you want to know.
Because there's witnesses.
What's that?
Cynthia replied back to her, because now there's witnesses.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, goodness.
John also posted his members are both distributors and manufacturers. So their main focus has completely shifted from networking to business continuity. So again, looking for those opportunities to shift and serve your members what they need right now. And how you're doing that, and then tracking the success of that, whether that's engagement and really helping, right? Contributing overall.
Right.
That's
You
great.
know, it makes me think, Julie, that, and again, I hope we end up flexing new muscles when we get through this. This model that we have of connecting people who need things with people who have things is what, 100 freaking years old. It always has to be at a huge meeting. It always has to be on an exhibit hall floor. It always has to be surrounded by pomp and circumstance, when all people want to do is solve their problems, and the other people, all they want to do is help people solve their problems. So I'm hoping that I really do hope that we're developing some new muscles here that allow us to zero back in on what's the intent of what people are trying to do. And, you know, we've got all of these older institutional things that we do that take time and effort and money. That's more about, and I'm not downplaying this, I don't think, but it's so much more about the experience than the actual solving the problem.
Yeah, makes sense.
I agree. I got a couple questions coming in. This is good, guys. And I'm going to add to this one. I have a question come in. What technologies are failing you during this time? But based on what you just said, Reggie, what are some operational processes or old ways of thinking that are also failing you in this new normal? Anybody can answer that.
It's not technology, but if somebody can tell me what to do with the damn mail, I would be like, I'll make sure next time I see you that you get one of these, because I mean, seriously, that's been one of the issues that we've been dealing with, which is crazy. Again, in this day and age, that mail is our issue. Sorry, it's kind of a joke, but it's really not a joke.
Yeah, members still mail checks, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, technologies for us, I mean, people are certainly more reliant on software in this remote teleworking culture. But I think it goes back to Reggie's earlier point, and this is something that we're big on at Association Analytics. It's rarely the tool. I'm sure there are some out there, and we want to hear which ones are really working or really not working. But it's more the processes and people in work, managing the actual workflow around those tools to utilize them as they should be used, and set the processes to allow yourself and your team to be successful with them. So that's usually the way that we look at things. But
there's a question and a comment, Reggie, a little bit about that based on something you said earlier. And somebody asked how well do managers understand how long it takes to do something if they're really only used to managing by watching butts and seats and not really being outcomes focused?
My answer is right.
Profound, Reggie, profound.
Yeah, I don't have a better answer. I really don't.
One word.
I'll tell you that what I see happening now, and I'm seeing it online, is that I can see better communications happening, and I can see meetings being more focused. I mean, I can just see that stuff now, and I'm hoping that we're learning from it.
Yeah.
I got another question, and this is probably more for Nikki and Reggie. How do you balance relevant content that your members need with all the information and solicitation overload that they're getting about everything coronavirus?
So, Dave, you froze a little bit, but I think I heard the question. I think if the question is, so I think it's a two-part question. One is, how do we balance giving them what they need up against all the other crap we send them?
Right. How do you cut through the bull for your members, basically, is the question.
Yeah. And we just had a really straightforward conversation. We're not marketing anything right now. We're just not. People can't come to things right now. And the online stuff that we're doing that's directly related to, abatement of how people are feeling right now, we're giving that away. And I think that's appropriate. So that's how we cut through that. We're not marketing anything else right now. But I think the other issue is, we have to be a little more diligent in how we're collecting and packaging the stuff that they do need right now, so that it's a lot more organized. I mean, I'm just so aware of how much impatience people probably have because of all of going on in their lives right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've sharpened my focus on even the things that we know they need. Let's make them special. Let's make them really get to what they need in a way that's more useful for them.
And do you have the data to back that up, that you can see from the level of what people are used to getting or what they need or their topics that they usually are engaged with? I mean, you guys have tons of tools at ASAE, so I'm assuming you're building a data profile on those members and trying to channel the right information to them.
Absolutely, but I can tell you that, again, I could go and show you the charts. Everybody's trying to figure out what to do about coronavirus related to their specific job.
Yep.
You know, what I'm a marketing person. What should I be doing right now? I'm a facilities person. What should I be doing right now? You know, everybody's doing it. I got a chart that shows me all the stuff in a word chart, what's on people's mind, and I can go and filter by association size. I can filter by geographic region. I can filter by level in the organization, and all of them are the same damn thing right now. Just
yeah. So here's another question, and this is going to be kind of, so I'll give you guys 3 seconds to think about it, because this is going to kind of be the tips and tricks and things others can glean from some of the stuff you're doing, and I'll lead it off. The question is, we talked earlier about managing remotely. How best can you help managers, especially newer ones, ensure their team's productivity, understanding the challenges they face, talk about goals and anything else? I know one of the things we're doing, what I've been doing with my team, we immediately set up, what's the one thing, and Nikki and I talked about this yesterday, because she's that person, but the one thing I'm used to doing when I walk in the office is walking around and saying hi to everybody. I mean, how your day was, or how your weekend was, or tell me a funny story about your kids or your dog or your grandma or whatever. And that's some of the stuff that gets lost. So we set up just a virtual we call it virtual coffee. And at 8:45 every morning, everybody gets on Zoom here on video. People got their business up top, pajamas on the bottom, I'm sure, cup of coffee, and we sit around and we just talk. What did you watch on Netflix last night? And it kind of brings back that personal connection to the workday. And then we infuse it a little bit. Does anybody have any questions about priorities or challenges they're facing? We all try to group mind think through that. And then we start our day. And because we're going to be on Zoom and Teams and everything else all day, but at least we have that kind of very informal communication and to start everybody's day off, because that's what people are used to at work.
Yeah.
What about you guys? Anything you guys are doing or thinking about doing?
Well, I think to that point, David, one of the other things that we talked about is, if you think about, we're still, to be as virtual as the world is, we're still very much in the office right now. And so, like, I sit on the where our professional development team sits. And so the information that I get and I hear just sitting at the end of the hall every day, it's crazy. Like, I know, that such and such a speaker didn't show up, or, that they're trying to find a speaker for this, or this is a hot topic or whatnot. And so one of the things that at least we're trying to do to fill in those gaps, we decided we're going to do a communication chronicle. And so essentially, and we asked our team, like, do you want to do a weekly meetup where we talk about this stuff, or do you want it in form of an email? And they actually preferred an email so they could refer back to it. But each of our departments is going to go through and, the top 3 or 4 things they're working on, so that we're filling in those gaps, those holes of information that, even though we might not have made a decision about X, Y, or Z conference at this point, we're still thinking about it. We're still talking about it. And I feel like those are things that people on our team, they're used to knowing, are being able to hear just by walking around the office with each other. We put into place these chronicles that we hope that will, help with that.
Yeah. So, it's funny, Dave. I was trying to find the right balance for us. I was trying to, in our team's environment, create spaces that people thought were familiar. So we set up a virtual lunchroom, for example, and it's open from 11:30 to 1:30. And I said, nobody's going to go to this doggone thing. I went in there on Tuesday, and it was just like the freaking lunchroom at work. Everybody talking at the same time, and nobody listening.
Family dinner party.
Which was fabulous to see. I think at this time in particular, we all have personal relationships with the people we manage. And so in addition to getting together, the whole team, I make sure at least once a day to drop in either via a chat or a Teams video to check on each individual, much like I would during the course of the day. So I think, trying to create those normal patterns that give people comfort and make them grounded. In addition to the other things, because I see things about pet rooms, and the first thing that happened on Monday, the first day of remote, is people start putting pictures of their pets up, which I thought was just cool. It's adorable.
Yeah, we have a whole channel for that at ours.
Yeah, we have A2 pet.
Yeah.
But I think make sure we don't go overboard introducing things into something that we make the place so abnormal and then wonder why people aren't getting work done.
Right, with intention, right? You don't want to distract from productivity.
Right.
I mean,
right.
That's something that we did, which I was a little skeptical at first. It was virtual work buddy system, basically. And I think that's really it, Reggie. Yeah. Well, no, you don't work together all day or anything like that. It's really to have those. It's not as scary as it sounds. I had the same initial reaction.
She looked at me funny when I brought it up, Reggie.
I did, because I was like, what is this? But now that we've been doing it for a couple of weeks, it allows you to have those water cooler talks that typically turn into something problem solving on a client account or on a product issue that we might be having or something like that. And then we then throw it out there to the larger group for our continuous improvement. And so there's been a lot of great side conversations that came out of that virtual work buddy system that I certainly didn't anticipate, because I had that same face, Reggie.
Yep.
I'm going to ask Brian what he thinks about it.
It's only for product and ops, not sales and marketing. They do have happy hours all the time, I think.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing. No, that's good. Well, it's 4:00, everybody. So I'm going to thank our outstanding panelists. This was our first virtual happy hour. It definitely will not be our last, because I'm sure this isn't ending tomorrow. But we thank everybody for hanging in there for the hour and input and playing along with us. And we hope to see you on the next show.
Yeah.
Have a great day.
All right, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.